Hello and welcome to this video on Linux administration. In this segment, we will introduce you to the basics of Linux administration. Linux is an open source operating system that is widely used in servers, supercomputers, and embedded systems. It is known for its stability, security, and flexibility. Linux is also highly customizable, which makes it a popular choice for developers and system administrators. As a Linux administrator, your role is to manage and maintain Linux systems. This includes installing and configuring software, managing users and permissions, monitoring system performance, and troubleshooting issues. To become a Linux administrator, you need to have a good understanding of Linux commands, file systems, networking, and security. You also need to be familiar with scripting languages like Bash and Python. In this video, we will cover the following topics: Linux distributions and their differences, Linux file system hierarchy, basic Linux commands, user and group management, network configuration, security and permissions. By the end of this video, you will have a solid foundation in Linux administration and be ready to take on more advanced topics. So, let's get started. In this segment, we will discuss Linux distributions and their differences. A Linux distribution, or distro, is a collection of software that includes the Linux kernel, system utilities, and application software. There are many Linux distributions available, each with its own set of features and target audience. Ubuntu, a user-friendly distribution that is popular for desktop use. Debian, a stable and reliable distribution that is popular for servers. CentOS, a distribution that is based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux and is popular for servers. Fedora, a cutting-edge distribution that is popular for developers. Arch Linux, a lightweight and customizable distribution that is popular for advanced users. Each distribution has its own package manager, which is used to install and manage software. For example, Ubuntu uses the apt package manager, while CentOS uses the package manager. The differences between distributions can also be seen in their default desktop environments. A desktop environment is a collection of software that provides a graphical user interface. Some popular desktop environments include GNOME, KDE, and XFCE. As a Linux administrator, it is important to choose the right distribution for your needs. Consider factors such as stability, security, ease of use, and community support. In the next segment, we will discuss the Linux file system hierarchy. In this segment, we will discuss the Linux file system hierarchy. The Linux file system is organized in a hierarchical structure, with all files and directories starting from the root directory, denoted by a // This structure is similar to the directory structure in Windows, but with some key differences. The root directory contains all other directories and files in the system. Some important directories in the Linux file system hierarchy include /bin contains essential system binaries, such as the ls and cp commands. /etc contains system configuration files, such as the password file that stores user account information. /home contains the home directories for all users. /user contains user binaries, libraries, and documentation. /var contains variable data, such as log files and mail spools. In addition to these directories, there are also mount points for external devices, such as USB drives and network shares. As a Linux administrator, it is important to understand the file system hierarchy and the purpose of each directory. This knowledge will help you navigate the file system and locate important files and directories. In the next segment, we will cover some basic Linux commands that you will use frequently as a Linux administrator. In this segment, we will cover some basic Linux commands that you will use frequently as a Linux administrator. 1. pwd. This command displays the current working directory. 2. ls. This command lists the contents of a directory. The l option can be used to display the contents in a long format, which includes file permissions, ownership, and modification time. 3. cd. This command changes the current working directory. For example, cd/home/user will change the current directory to the user's home directory. 4. mkdir. This command creates a new directory. For example, mkdir newdir will create a new directory called newdir in the current working directory. 5. rmdir. This command removes an empty directory. For example, rmdir newdir will remove the directory called newdir if it is empty. 6. cp. This command copies files and directories. For example, cp file filetool will copy file to filetool. 7. mv. This command moves or renames files and directories. For example, mv file newdir will move file to the directory called newdir. 8. rm. This command removes files and directories. The Alt option can be used to remove directories and their contents recursively. For example, rm-rnudia will remove the directory called nudia and all its content. 9. Cat this command displays the contents of a file. For example, cat filion will display the contents of filion. 10. Grep this command searches for a pattern in a file. For example, grep pattern filion will search for a pattern in filion. These are just a few of the many Linux commands that you will use as a Linux administrator. It is important to become familiar with these commands and their options to efficiently manage Linux systems. In the next segment, we will cover user and group management in Linux. In this final segment, we will cover user and group management in Linux. As a Linux administrator, you will be responsible for managing user accounts and groups. This includes creating and deleting user accounts, changing passwords, and assigning permissions. To create a new user account, you can use the userid command. For example, userid username will create a new user account called username. You can then set a password for the user using the password command. To delete a user account, you can use the usedel command. For example, usedel username will delete the user account called username. You can also create and manage groups using the group-add, groupdel, and usermod commands. For example, group-add groupname will create a new group called groupname, and usermod groupname username will add the user called username to the group called groupname. It is important to properly manage user accounts and groups to ensure the security and integrity of the system. This includes setting strong passwords, limiting user privileges, and regularly reviewing user accounts and permissions. In addition to user and group management, Linux also provides advanced security features such as file permissions, firewalls, and encryption. As a Linux administrator, it is important to understand these features and how to use them to secure your system. We hope this video has provided you with a solid foundation in Linux administration. Remember to continue learning and exploring the many features and capabilities of Linux. Thank you for watching.